I'd like to introduce Hanna and Miriam. Hanna and Miriam have been in the group since February, and we've been thrilled to have them. So they have done our gardening. It's been fantastic. So take it away, guys.
Hi, okay. So Hanna and I are Space Thyme Gardens, and this is our logo, our website if you want to check it out, and there's more cards we can pass out if anyone's interested in looking us up as we go through this. Okie dokie, so Space and Time, as it is here. Our name means a lot to us for a multitude of reasons. What is space? It's what we occupy, it's what we plant in. It's the time that we use time in space. It's really an important term for us for so many different reasons. And time as well, it's a plant, it's an herb, it's productive, it's got lots of uses. And if you guys or anyone you know provides us with space, we'll provide you with our time. So this is kind of an all-encompassing image of kind of what we're trying to be all about.
That's actually Miriam.
Yeah.
In the space.
That was impressive.
In space.
Is that what you've been doing in the off season?
Yeah, this is what we do during our business meetings.
We like the idea of space and time travel.
Yeah. Space and time travel.
And if you follow us on Instagram, we have an assortment of hashtags depending on what we're doing that are plays off of space and time.
Yeah. So that's what you should really be paying attention to.
Okay, so what we offer as a business, we offer sod removal, organic fruit and vegetable garden installation and maintenance, homestead design, so that can be backyard apothecaries and pollinator gardens, xeriscape designs, that's primarily what we've been doing, that's just low water, container gardens for patios and small spaces, hand weeding services and general landscape maintenance, custom-made garden boxes and compost bins, interior scaping, and plant identification maps. So this is a picture of us ripping out a lawn. This was in Lafayette, and we used a sod cutter, and then we ended up having to till because the soil was super compacted underneath. But this is just, we wanted to show this picture to give you guys an example of one thing that we really enjoy doing because it is super meaningful and beneficial to the world is to rip out that sod. And this is why. We have so just some fun stats on lawns. The amount of water used daily for residential irrigation is more than 7 billion gallons. The amount of synthetic pesticides used on lawns annually is over 30,000 tons. The ratio of pesticide use per acre by the average homeowner versus the average farmer is 10 to 1. So we think it's bad how much pesticides we're putting. The farmers are using, it's even worse what the homeowners are using. Percent that include known or suspected reproductive toxins, 22%. Percent that includes ingredients that are banned or restricted in other countries, 41%. Percent that include possible carcinogens, 53%. Percent that pose a threat to the environment, including water supplies, aquatic organisms, and non-targeted insects, 100%. So it's all a threat.
It's all a threat, guys. Your lawn is a threat.
This is, interestingly, Hanna and I found these last three stats out. Doing this research, we didn't even know. Amount of gasoline burned annually caring for lawns is 800 million gallons. The amount of gasoline spilled by the Exxon Valdez was 10.8 million gallons, but the amount of gas spilled annually refilling gas mowers is 17 million gallons.
Shame on you guys with the lawns. Shame on you. So yeah, it's not good, so we should get rid of it. So we're going to do 2 examples of some projects that we've done, because we only have so much time. This is the Kelly residence, who happens to be here right now. And she had a big juniper seat in front of her house, and we turned it into a drought-tolerant and semi-productive garden.
So this is the before, and this is the immediate.
Yeah. Don't get it confused. So, this is what we present to the customer. This is an example of what we present to people. So the one on the right is what we showed Robin and her husband, when we were having our brainstorming session and just like coming up with ideas. And then the one on the left is what we gave them afterwards, and it's a map of where everything is and how to identify it, and we also gave them a map of whether or not they could use the plants for like culinary or medicinal. And so this was what it looked like after the juniper came out, and we had 3 boulders put in, and then we started putting stuff in the ground. And then, oh, and among the stuff we put in the ground was some culinary sage. Here, it's a tricolor sage. I can't remember what the botanical name is. And then we have tarragon and anise hyssop, and they're all, you know, pretty drought-tolerant plants. They need a little bit of extra water if you want them to be productive. Nothing you can't just go out with a watering can and do yourself if you so wanted to. And they're beautiful. So it's all about integrating usefulness and beauty.
So they're all these are examples of functional.
This is functional, like, landscape design. And this was immediately after the installation. We set up the irrigation. It was looking like we were really pleased. And then I came back 2 months later and everything was like exploding. And it looked so good. And I actually went back. When was I there? Like a month ago? And it like
just last week.
It was maybe a little more than that.
Okay.
But like it looked great. It still looked really good. It just kept getting better. So.
And I wish we had pictures. Like we're a new business, so we don't have years in the making. But the one thing that happens sometimes is when you plant, you have to space things.
Yes.
To an extent.
Yeah.
And over the years, things really fill in beautifully. And so we don't have any. You know, next year we'll just keep showing you pictures of how these things develop because they become very abundant and beautiful over. It just takes time.
Yeah. It's like, well, looking into the future, like Michelle said, it's like, how can we convince people to look into the future when things look kind of sparse in the beginning? So it's like, gotta have faith. So here's our next one that we're going to talk about. This is the Wolf Residence, and it was we did a xeriscape, and then we did a vegetable garden bed around it. So I'll show you pictures. So this is what we presented to him. Just like, it's mostly like for us, really, but it's just so, you know, he sees what our idea is and he can critique us and whatever. And so this is what we were working with. It was a patio, there was like a tree that needed to go away, there was just a bunch of trash. Like, it was like, the space itself wasn't like doing itself any favors. Like, it had a lot of potential.
And this residence, they had just put the deck in.
Yeah, it was a new deck.
So that's also the sort of thing that we like working with carpenters or builders who have just installed something, and now the people are like, well, how can we
Make it
we
better.
enhance it? And
Yeah.
how can, now that we're going to be spending more time outside, what do we want to look at?
Yeah, exactly. So the second step, they put in this raised garden bed around the perimeter of the patio. It's about 3 feet tall.
And this is a panorama. It's
Yeah, it looks
straight.
weird. It's a panorama.
Straight.
Oh, it is.
Yeah. It'd be kind of cool if it wasn't straight, but it's straight. There's Miriam working diligently. And this was after we were finished the first day. So we have broccoli, carrots, herbs in the vegetable garden bed, and then we have the xeriscape in the background. So this was just all stuff from the first day. There was a little bit of a wetter area in a really shady spot because sometimes it can be, xeriscape and shade can be kind of difficult sometimes. So a little bit of added water in that area, it's not like a big deal, but
We also
can all
put
handle
this. We also put this walkway in. It's all flagstone, which we basically, I think we dug it up. It was just lying.
He just had a bunch of rocks.
Yeah, and so that way they're not trampling over their
Yes.
things as they're
And they can
harvesting.
access the vegetables. So, oh, and we gave them a map of all the vegetables that we put in so that they knew what they were working with. That was kind of fun. And oh, and then up there is, in the corner, it's kind of hard to see, but that's everything a couple of months later, just like totally exploding in the
I think it
vegetables.
was just a month later. Like this is how sparse it looks when we planted it, and then
We
that
came
is.
back and it was like
It was like-
overflowing. It was overflowing. It was awesome. It's beautiful. It's like vegetable gardening can be like like gorgeous. So that's what we like to focus on. So yeah, moving forward, we want to do more gorgeous vegetable gardening for people, integrating it into the landscape or having it as an asset to the landscape. More fruit, vegetable, medicinal herb gardens. We want more customers that want us to grow their food for them. Like, that's something that we really want to focus on next year. We like doing xeriscapes, but it's like, the food thing is what we really want to do.
So in this picture is a new client that we have that they have these raised beds. They just moved into this house and they don't really know what to do with them. So they let all this stuff, this is kind of what it looks like.
Yeah.
And so we cleared it all out, and next year we're gonna
do
for
a
them.
planting calendar.
Try to
So do
wrap
you want
it
to just cut
through
the questions right now?
Yeah, but put the next slide.
This is the last one. Oh, it's not. I forgot. Don't you find it odd that people will put more work into choosing their mechanic or house contractor than they will into choosing the person who grows their food? Joel Sell. Miriam,
No.
drinking on the job.
That was a client who was insistent that we drink.
He was
with
like
them the whole time.
insisting that we drink the whole time.
But
Are those the type of clients you're looking for?
Yeah, we're looking for people like that.
An ideal referral for me is.
Anyone have any questions?
there's a few other things that I just want to say is that gardening can be very therapeutic. I saw a lot of quotes about how it's like therapy, but you're getting something out of it. And we have a lot of clients that are people that it really sort of seems like they just want to hang out and chat. And
Totally.
if they're outside moving around, hanging out and chatting, that's great too. And another interesting quote that I saw that we're going to look into this deeper because we're actually thinking about starting a podcast, and this is something we wanted to talk about, was the supermarkets are kind of a very modern thing and have only existed in the last probably 50 years or so. And before that, everyone just grew their own food, and it's a lost art, and it's an important one. So we want to bring that back, and however people want to do that, we're willing to help them and accommodate people's individual needs and wants.
Great. Questions?
I have a question,
Yes.
comment. Wolf Residence Supply of mine that I've been working with for 7 or 8 years now. And you guys did a great job on planting. And the guys worked, Rob and Matt and Jake all said, oh, we love working with those girls. And I'm trying to get them to come to TRP. And they said, the girls told me about that.
Yeah.
So I said, you guys need to come. And so it's really wonderful. And then they've been working on the house. I think some of you have heard me talk about the house up in Allen's Park. That's just, this client, he's a great client.
Yeah.
And so they did a redo on that landscaping there and are going to be continuing to have maintain that project up there.
Great.
So it's great.
When you do a raised bed for food growing, is there concern about using pressure-treated wood or whatever the chemicals are?
Yeah, that is a concern.
Okay.
I've heard that you want untreated cedar.
Is that what you
That's
guys use?
ideal.
Like,
Cedar would be
how-
ideal, but not pressure treated. You don't really.
So I see you
that would
have
be-
raised beds there. What type of wood do you choose to use?
So that was Rob's work. He was like another contractor as part of this project, so I'm not totally sure what he was using.
Okay.
It was the sort of thing where he was going to build them bed.
We built mine and he built some other ones for me that were out of red.
We wouldn't recommend using pressure-treated wood, but if there is a contractor or builder there who's already working on a project to build beds for people, we'll advise on the planting or do the planting. But if it's already built or if they're already
So you advise on the whole, like you would advise from this is the type of wood you want to use?
yeah, if that's what the client wanted, for sure, I would make those suggestions from the beginning. And the problem is when you're using that like raw cut, and it's just not going to last as long.
It's a catch-22.
But it'll last at least,
Like 10 years.
yeah. Sometimes it just, it starts looking,
It looks rustic,
You start
which is really in right now, so it'll age well.
Do you guys do just like maintenance on things? So like occasionally I'll have owners and they have a garden area that they really care about, but we don't necessarily expect tenants to
Yep.
take care of that. So you would just like come a couple of times during the spring
Yeah,
and
we
summertime?
do stuff like that for sure as like to supplement everything else, so.
They made my backyard look better than it looked in years. Yeah, that was the maintenance part.
Yeah.
All right, we can do one more question. and-
How big an area do you need?
How big of an area?
We tend to look in smaller.
I think both of those projects were between like 600 and 800 square feet. Both of those projects, if I remember from the design.
We're open to larger spaces depending on, it would really have to be a case-by-case basis, but we could subcontract out help
Yeah, it's
for a
not,
larger
yeah.
space. And that's, you know, moving into the future, we'd be willing to look at projects like that, but it would have to fit the other guidelines, you know, if it's just pure,
Like somebody just wants like to throw down a landscape, don't really care, they just want to look at, like that's not really a client that we are looking for, you know.
we're not looking for like.
Like if somebody
huge
had like a
renovation.
whole property, they have like a quarter of an acre and they wanted to do like a homestead, they want like apple trees, they want like perennial fruits and vegetables and drought tolerant plants, like bring it on. Like if it's a big project, like I'd love to do that,
I
but
think we just have to meet with the client and talk to them about what their needs are and move from there, but it's one of those things.
Yeah.
We looked at a property that a woman, she wanted to do the whole yard to get redone, and it was just beyond our scope of what we were willing to do.
Yeah.
If it had been a productive garden, then
Yeah.
maybe we would have considered it.
So with our garden, we have a hard time getting the food during the year. It, you know, kind of comes on in late July and goes, well, this year went into November, but usually it doesn't.
Kind of water, Paul.
Is it, yeah. So what techniques do you have to get food earlier?
so you could do some season extending. So the thing with season extending is that it doesn't always look good. So I'm gonna preface this, but like you could do small hoop houses over your garden bed with the Rime fabric. It's like that white fabric that's kind of thin. And that'll keep frost off of it, because a lot of vegetables are actually very cold hardy, but they don't really necessarily like it when they get frosted on. And so if you just have something that protects them, you can extend it for a while. And then another thing about early spring gardening is that you want the soil temperature to be above like, I think the soil temperature needs to be above like 55 degrees Fahrenheit. And so what you can do if you have a raised bed is cover it in plastic, like in the early spring, and it'll just slowly start like accumulating heat, like the mass of the, you know what I mean? And so then you can warm up the bed sooner, because the sooner the bed's warm, the faster the seeds will germinate, and then you can start sooner. So there are techniques you can do, because, you know, July is really when the garden starts coming in. But if you get a little bit sooner, get things going a little bit sooner, you'll, you know, maybe at the end of June or like the middle of June, you'll start getting stuff.
It's also
That's
what
kinda
you're
just the way it
planting
is.
too. There's some things that are.
Like salad, you
that
can do
will
salad almost year round.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You know.
and how high your beds are off the ground can make a difference too.
Yeah.
Just because the ground is so cold here.
Yeah, it's almost better to have things closer to the ground if you want to extend your season, because the earth itself will hold the heat.
Could you put black plastic around it?
Like a tomato plant or something?
Just, yeah.
Well,
The worry about that is actually burning the plant.
Right.
Then, yeah,
yeah.
you could attract too much heat.
And also
That's
tomatoes
pure
go
plastic.
dormant under 55 degrees too, so they don't even produce fruit anymore. So there's certain crops. It's all about growing the right crops at the right time of the year. So you could get like a lot of like the brassicas, you can do salad greens, you could do root vegetables, all when it's cooler. But as soon as you get into the warmer weather, you want to stick to like the nightshades where they're really heat tolerant. And so, but they don't tolerate cold. So it's all about balancing it out. You know, you can't have everything.
And that's
all
why
the
you
time.
get a tower garden.
Yeah, you get tower garden.
That's right.
Inside winter grass.
Yeah.
All right, guys, thanks very much.